let's get into some NBA draft questions. But we're going to start with one that came from an NBA scout friend of mine that I know. He took the clarion call and decided to ask a question himself. And because, we can't really just start throwing up things from NBA scouts on the screen, I'm just going to have to read this one. There seem to be a lot of defenders in this class who have some aesthetic issues with how they move, but the functionality of their defense at the college level wasn't hindered completely. So he brings up Danny Wolf and Con Knippel here as examples for this. There are also a lot of weird movers with different builds in this class that are like anywhere from very good on defense to better than you expect, from Colin Murray Boyles, Noah Penda to Ben Suraf and like Jaeger Demon. How much of your evaluation is stuck on tools and an analysis of the movement profile versus just how they have been defensively on tape in terms of the tape in terms of the impact that they have? And how much do combine measurements swing your trust in either direction?
It's a great question. So I did find myself with the combine measurements, all I really considered or thought about whenever those would come across was the defensive end, to be honest with you, in terms of like, okay, is this guy going to be able to provide rim protection? In Khan's case, is this guy going to be able to scale up and guard the size of offensive players that I want him to? Because while I think he holds up at the point of attack in college, I'm worried about his ability to hold up at the point of attack against twitchier, more explosive, quicker perimeter athletes in the NBA. So I would say yes, in terms of those measurements at the combine, that is one thing that I at least take into account for what I think they can be on the defensive end specifically. The aesthetics of their movement is interesting because I'm trying to think of anybody who I have that in. You know what I've watched more and more, Sam? You talk about high hips all the time.
Yes.
And that was something that I hadn't really thought about as much until you said it.
Drives me crazy because those guys with higher hips just get leveraged all the time. And it's being able to drop your hips and move at the point of attack. It's being able to hold your position, whether against a post up or a box out or whatever. And so I do find myself trying to look for those things a little bit more now as well. That's not exactly aesthetics, but no.
Yeah.
Well, it's important in terms of movement profile.
Movement profile
in terms of physical strength profile. So we're going to get another question here next on a guy that actually has high hips that I'm a little bit lower on. I get the impression about, as we'll talk about, when we get to him. But I think that having like a lower center of gravity allows you to be able to just slide a little bit quicker, and then B, also be able to handle contact. Like Cason Wallace has a really low center of gravity and is able to absorb bumps at a really high level, despite the fact that he's like 190 pounds, right? Like he's not wildly like heavy. Like, he doesn't have like Dylan Harper coming in at like 215, 220, right? He just is very strong and is able to load up and is able to like absorb that contact when it comes to you. And I think that's such a big part of defense. I don't think Alex Caruso has like wildly low hips, but Caruso has incredible bend and is able to like get in a stance and be able to like be straight up in his stance and also get his ass lower to the ground. So you don't necessarily have to have these incredibly, low to the ground hips, right? But you have to be able to get your hips lower to the ground is really the key to me. And there are a number of guys in this class that I think struggle to do that. We'll talk about one in a second. And there are some guys that I think are pretty good at it. Like I think Con Knippel plays with bend really, really well. Now Con just might not be quite twitchy enough to be like a super high level defender, but I think that Con is really smart and really intelligent about the way that he uses angles. And I think is never going to be like a liability on defense because I think he knows where to kind of take guys into the help and is very good at being able to kind of push guys where he needs to using his physical strength. So that's kind of an interesting, point with Knipple, I think. And I think like Colin Murray Boyles, for instance, has a lower center of gravity for a player that also has super long arms, because typically like they kind of go together, right? Where you have a higher center of gravity and you have longer arms, you have like kind of longer limbs in general, right? The guys that almost are like the cheat codes to me, like your Draymond Green is like the prime example of this. The guy that I look at like, this is it. Draymond Green has a low center of gravity, but also has incredibly long arms.
Mm-hmm.
And that allows him to be able to get the most out of his length and his strength, right? I think Colin Murray Boyles has a similar mix of those two things, while also not necessarily being quite as, not quite as intelligent and not quite as good in terms of movement as Draymond is. I don't love that comparison that people are making, but I do really, really like, I like that combination of movement factors in a real way.
It's funny. I told somebody today the two comps that terrify me when people make them are Nikola Jokic and Draymond Green, because it's like,
and Kevin Durant, honestly, for me.
Yeah, and it's not. It's not because I think people are saying they're going to be Nikola Jokic. I understand that that's not what people are saying. It's just for those two guys, the level of processing and court mapping and all of that. It has to be all of these things that tick every single box. And if one of them doesn't, it's like, well, what if Draymond was a half a second slower mapping the court on both ends of the floor? What is Draymond Green then? Like, what is he? What if his wingspan is, not neutral, but average? What is he then? So one thing that you said there too, one thing I've really watched a lot more since I had a scout tell it to me was being able to hold your line defensively. And that could be lowering your center of gravity. Colin Murray Boyles has this with his chest, his torso. Like, he's just very strong. And when somebody bumps him, he doesn't move. I'll be a homer here. This is what Isaiah Stewart is really good at on the defensive end.
Yes.
When somebody hits Isaiah Stewart's chest, he does not move usually in general. And he has a really good wingspan. And so you don't watch Isaiah Stewart and go, wow, what a high riser, but he blocks and contests a ton of shots because he puts his chest on you. You don't move him and he contests. You know who that kind of gets me excited about in terms of the idea of it? Is our guy, Cedric Coward, because I feel like he could do some of those things, even though I haven't seen it as much as what I'd want. So that kind of plays into the question, do I buy into or think about what I've seen? Or do I look at Cedric Coward and say, here's ridiculous length. Here's a guy with good athleticism, good movement. You put a little bit more weight on the frame, and that's a really good point of attack defender. Like Rasheer Fleming is another one. Well, let me ask you this. Which one of those things do you think Rasheer Fleming doesn't have? Because he does have the wingspan. So what holds you back with Rasheer defensive? I think I know the answer, but what holds you back with Rasheer defensively?
I think he has no idea where he's going on defense.
So that's the big difference here, right? Like, that's where this other stuff comes into play. Is Rasheer has this crazy length. I think he has a good frame. I don't think he moves on the perimeter quite as well as some of the guys we're talking about, but then you have to have this other stuff as well in terms of reaction and movement and awareness. And again, it's going to be my favorite thing to say now, court mapping on the defensive end, not just offensively. So
no, I completely agree with all that. So I guess that to answer this question from this NBA scout who sent us this beautiful question, which I love, I care more about the tape than I do about the tools, because I think that where you pick up on the ability to map the court, to move, to be able to rotate effectively is realistically just by watching full games of tape. Like, that's what you have to do. And you really have to kind of grind through it to understand it a little bit more. I think that is really kind of the key. And I care way more about the tape than I do about the physical. Like, I care about the physical tools. I think there are certain levels and like thresholds you probably have to hit in order to be effective. And I worry about like Khan being able to hit like more than a certain level because he is, not super explosive and twitchy. But I don't think Khan's ever going to be like a bad NBA defender. He's too competitive. He's too smart. He's physical. He's strong. He knows where to send guys. Like, I care way more about the tape. And that's why, I think I'm a little bit lower on, like, I really like Noah Penda's tape on defense. I think Noah Penda is a really good defender. I've seen people compare him to like Herb Jones and like other really, really high end defenders. And I'm just like, the tape does not say that, guys. If you watch the full games, like it does not. He gambles way more often and he's not quite as laterally quick as those guys. So it's like a mix and match of the tools. But I like Noah Penda. Like, I'm not taking shots at Noah Penda. I think he's, probably one of the, 10 best defensive prospects in the class for sure. I really like Penda, but I can't quite get to the point where I think he's like a real, oh my God, this guy might be making all defense team guy either. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I've always been, I think it's fine. Penda's going to be a really fascinating one for me because I think we are in a similar idea on Penda. I'm just much lower on his defense than others are. I think it's fine. Yeah. I think it's probably good, but it's nowhere, to me, it's nowhere near Herb Jones. Now, this may be the Tari.
I like Carter Bryant more than I like him on defense, to be honest with you.
And this may end up being like a Tari Eason thing for me where we've talked about this. We went through the whole thing. We sat down on the couch and you got it out of me. Bryce, why do you not appreciate defensive playmaking enough? And it's why, like, I was like, I don't get it with Tari Eason. I don't see it coming out of college. I was like, he just takes chances. He's always just jumping passing lanes. And I was a baby scout then. I've come a long way, but that's my thing with Penda a little bit too is, and maybe he's just going to be that disruptive and do all of those things. But I'm with you as well is I refuse to talk about a player's defense if I don't watch a full game. I will not do it. I feel much more comfortable getting the grasp of an offensive player in terms of like, if I just watch certain clips and whatever. I don't think you can click on steals, blocks, defensive rebounds, those things on Synergy and tell me what a guy is on the defensive end. Cause you miss communication, transition, rotations. Does he rotate box out when he's supposed to? Like, okay, he got 6 defensive rebounds. Did he rotate and get the most important one that kept somebody off the offensive boards? So I refuse to talk defense till I've seen a full game.
Completely agree. Okay. Let's go to the next one. So from Jeff Jazuski, over on Twitter. I know you guys are around the median range to slightly lower on Common Maluach, which he agrees with. But what do you think the case is for folks that rank him in their top 3 to 5? Is there a rationale that you could see for him being that high? So I think that the reason people rank him that high is that they see like real shooting upside.
Yep.
They think he's going to be like an elite level defender. And they think that he is going to be like a monster, like gravitational pick and roll force as a rim runner. I don't see any of that. I see the defense. Like, I think he could be a really, really high level defender. I understand why people love the finishing. He was obviously incredibly effective as a finisher this year. I'll pull up my, the draft guide profile written on him while we're talking, but like, I have the numbers if we need them. Made 80.6% of his shots at the rim per synergy, 72% from the field in total. Also made 67% of his layups, which is an amazing number. The thing for me is that he just doesn't get those shots often enough. It's like a Mitchell Robinson, Rudy Gobert situation because I don't love his hands. And then the other thing that we kind of just alluded to a second ago for Common is that he has these very high hips that I think allow him to kind of get bumped off of his line by taggers and by bigs kind of coming back to be able to get back in the play. And he doesn't get downhill enough to consistently get lobs at the end of the day. That's what worries me most. And then there's like the rebounding issues where, again, the very high hips allow him to kind of get moved around by guys jostling for offensive rebounds. Yeah, I have some Maluach concerns, I think, that hold me back to him being like, I think he can be like a really solid starting caliber NBA center, but I don't really ever see him being like an all-star center. Like I don't see that at all, to be honest with you.
Yeah, listen, this was a guy like early on in the process. I was like, this is going to be my guy. I'm really excited. I think there's potential floor spacing here. Like this is the archetype of big that, as people know, I can really fall in love with. I'm always looking for the rim protecting, floor spacing big. It's why like I love Miles Turner so much, and I think he's been awesome in these playoffs. And I just think that floor spacing really provides so much. I've soured a little bit. So I think that's the answer. You outlined the answer. I'm not there. And I also just have I think he plays hard, but I don't know that he plays fast. So like to our last question,
agree.
This is one of the things I am nervous. And again, maybe I will learn a lesson here. I am nervous that in college, when the game's not quite as fast and, everybody's not quite as athletic, whenever the game speeds up in the NBA, and he's out of position, he doesn't react quite as quick, he doesn't get off the floor quite as quick. Is that going to become a huge factor? I have it right here in my notes. Doesn't matter as much in college, but I think it will in the NBA. And again, maybe I will learn that it's not. Maybe he'll just improve and get better. But that is a real worry for me, along with the high hips, the hands, and some of the other stuff we've talked about.
And just to be clear, the reasons that I really like Common Maluach, I love the way that he improved defensively throughout the year. I think he got so much better with his distance control and gap control and ball screen coverages. Duke ran different ball screen coverages where they'd play him closer to the level, and he showed the ability to recover back at times. He showed some switchability this year, in my opinion. I think he has pretty good feet in space. I wouldn't say he's going to be a switch defender, but I think that if he gets caught on an island out there, he's pretty good. I think he's really good on the interior contesting shots. Or in ACC play, opposing team shot 9% worse around the rim and 9% worse overall at the basket when Maluach was on the court. And that is with the fact that Duke also had a great backup defensive big with Malik Brown in the game. So that's not, Duke didn't have a backup center. Maluach was just really, really impactful as an interior defender. I think he is going to be really, really good on that end. It's just really, can the offense kind of get to the level that it needs to get to, in my opinion. Yeah,
I think I'm glad you brought up the defense in terms of I think the ball screen defense versatility is a real possibility for him. I think he can sit down in a stance and I think he can play drop, but then I think there is some stuff where if a team wanted to be a little more creative with him in ball screen coverages, he that's a real possibility. I think that's something he can do. And so I like the defense. There's just some other things I'm a little bit worried about. And I'm glad you brought up the improvement, because that was one of my early notes, was he was giving a high foot, turning his hips to the sideline and in ball screen stuff early in the season. And I thought it got a little bit better throughout the year.
The other thing I will call out, I really liked him as a screener on offense. He makes contact, he screens and rescreens, he's physical and genuinely will hold the mesh point of the screen in order to make sure that Khan was getting a little bit of separation, because he ran a lot of screens with Khan, is why I bring up Khan. Brian brings up this idea he could be a slightly better version of Mitchell Robinson. I think they're just different. Part of what makes Mitch so good is that he's so athletic and also incredibly weirdly strong. Maluach doesn't quite have that weird strength level that Mitch does. And Mitch is obviously a little bit bouncier and more explosive. It is almost like Rudy Gobert, just with maybe less length and a little bit less. He doesn't move as well as Gobert does now, in my opinion. So he's a hard one. He's a hard one to comp to. And I don't love comps in general, but I know people kind of like it to get the idea. I think stylistically, it's a little bit more like Rudy Gobert, just maybe not as good.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think he has starter potential in the league. It's not like we have common. I mean, I think we've ended up I think we've taken him higher than what we have him on our boards. I don't know. what are your?
I have him, for what it's worth, I have him like 10 to 14 range, like somewhere in there is where I'll fall from.
That's where I'm at as well. So like we both solidly have him in the lottery. I still think it would be awesome. I was looking at, somebody asked me today, like, what would be your favorite fits? I'm like, if he did end up in Atlanta, I think that would be incredible. Like, I think that would be awesome for him.
I agree.
If Tre is the plan there long-term, or Tre, like if they're going to continue to run some sort of that offense, go in and play behind Onyeka for 2 years and help yourself develop and grow. That's going to be a great backup big for them, and then develop that chemistry with Tre or whoever it is. And then I think that's your center. Like, I think that's one of those scenarios. I think that's a great landing spot for Common, even if it means he's at 13 instead of, oh, well, it'd be cooler if he went 9 to Toronto. I'm like, okay, maybe, but I think the better spot for him, like, would be Atlanta. I think that would be an awesome fit for those two.
I agree. From Zach Rudine, this feels like a great opportunity for Philly to trade back and get one of the best bigs in this class with the uncertainty of Embiid and the general need for another big. Should they target a trade back and get a big, or take the best player available? Okay, so I like the idea of Philly trading back. I think Philly should trade back. It depends on how far they're going back in the draft to me, because and what else they're getting. Because to me, like, they really need to fill other holes on the team more than anything else. If they're going to maximize this window, and really, if you're thinking about it from like a Daryl Morey and the rest of that front office perspective, like, they need to maximize their chances for next year in order to keep their jobs, right? I think that they probably need to go out and get like a bigger forward, who can shoot at the end of the day. I think that they could certainly use like a backup big, but I also think they need just like another wing even that can play. Like, they need multiple bodies to be able to throw at the problem on the wing, especially like with Paul George not getting younger either. Basically, if Joel Embiid gets hurt and only plays 20 games next year, they're probably getting fired anyway, those front office people. If he doesn't, then they're probably fine. And at that point, you're probably trying to maximize what your chances are in the playoffs anyway. So I think that if they were able to get like, number 8 and number 19 from Brooklyn, in addition to Cam Johnson, or number 19 and 27, like whatever it is, like, I would use the Cam Johnson asset and the first asset to go get like your wings basically. And then I might use the later asset, be it 19 or 27, to go get another big. It'd be more like that to me, as opposed to, we should take a big at number 3. I think that should be absolutely off the table. Like, they should never take a big at 3 in this draft, at least. They're like, there's just nobody that has that upside to me. I do wonder if they were moving down to like, the mid, like, teens to the 20s, if you might do something like that.
Okay, so that's what I was like, okay, they move back to that range. Like, what's the name there though? I mean, we just talked about Common. I mean, I guess is the backup big. That's interesting, but him and Sorber would be the names then. Like, you're trading back into a range where you still get one of those two guys. Would that be the idea? Yeah.
Like, it'd be Derek Queen, Maluach, Sorber. I mean, I guess Danny Wolf, but like, that doesn't totally track. Like Baron J, but Baron J is a project and like, isn't going to be able to play immediately. I mean, Essengay isn't a center really, especially in the NBA next year. I don't think Newell is going to be a center next year in the NBA, at least. It'd be like Kalkbrenner then, like later in the first round, if you're doing anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for them, it would be more like go get established. If I'm going to trade 3, I think I want to like bring in guys. I don't know that I'm as worried about like trading down to get a big or something like that. I think it would be, I'm just either, trading down and getting that established, if it's Cam Johnson, if it's some other center on the market or whatever it is. Cause I'm with you. Like, as I think through their roster, I feel like I need a wing. I need a 4, a couple 4s, depending on what happens to Yabusele, and a backup center, right? Like I feel like I'm needing all of those things. So
yeah. No, I think that's right. From Bucket Getter, in a tertiary creator role, who do you think would be most impactful between Kasparis, Con Knipple, and Will Riley? So Kasparis Yakashona is 6'5" guard from Illinois, Con Knipple 6'5", wing from Duke, and Will Riley 6'8" wing from Illinois.
I
guess
you
take that one.
So wait, reread the question. Creator.
So tertiary, so like secondary creator, not playing consistently.
Okay, yeah. So specifically to that question, I would say Kasparis, just because I think Kasparis is the best, would have the best on ball, break down the defense, make passing decisions, stuff like that. He just played more on the ball. So I think because in my mind here, I'm taking out the ability to knock down shots and stuff like that. If you're,
I'm including all of it.
Okay,
what it's worth.
Then I would say Con. Yeah. I would say say Con then, because one, I have Con higher than Kasparis on my board, and I think that is Con's role essentially. So if we're factoring the ability to knock down shots and what that's going to force in terms of closeouts and just making one more passes and stuff like that, it would be Con. If you're asking me specifically who would be the best creator only, who was only the best at creating out of those situations, I would probably go Kasparis.
I think that's right, but I think is the tertiary creator next to a star guard, I think is the idea.
Sure.
I would go Con, because Con is the best shooter of the group by far, can
Agreed.
Also handle the ball, can also make decisions, and can play in ball screens occasionally. I think it's definitely Con.
I went over oh, sorry, go ahead.
Second for me would be Kasparis. Even so,
yeah,
I really like Kasparis playing as your secondary playmaker because of the ability to dribble, pass, shoot. Will is a little bit too inconsistent for me as a shooter right now. That's why I do have him as a first rounder. I thought I wasn't going to get there, but I do have him there. I quite like where we're at with those two being ahead of Will, though. I think there is a clear order. I think it's 1, 2, 3 for that.
I agree as well. For me, it would be Con, Kasparis, Will. Unless you ask me pure creation, then I would flip Con and Kasparis. And I'm intrigued by Will's all around versatility on the offensive end. I don't want to undersell that. I was going to say, I was over on the Busby podcast and we were talking about options for Charlotte at number 4. And they asked me, what is the upside of Con Knipple? Where is it at? And I'm interested to see if you agree. I told them it is his off the dribble game. Is he able to operate ball screens in a consistent way, the way we saw at times at Duke, where he had this chemistry with Common Maluach? Does he develop a chemistry with Mark Williams, whoever the big is in Charlotte for the foreseeable future? I told him I thought that was the upside, that all of a sudden Con is running second units and is just doing a lot more off the bounce and creating and passing than what maybe we're talking about all the time or people are giving him credit for.
Yeah. Okay. Next up, with the potential guard dead zone from 8 to 16-ish, how do you think teams will generally rank these wings? Colin Murray-Boyles, Carter Bryant, Noah Essengay, Nick Clifford, Rasheer Fleming, Cedric Coward. Colin Murray-Boyles, 6'6", big, basically from South Carolina. Carter Bryant, 6'7", wing from Arizona. Noah Essengay, we don't have a height measurement on, but he plays for Ulm right now. He's more of a forward. Nick Clifford, 6'5" to 6'6", wing from Colorado State. Rasheer Fleming, 6'9"-ish, big to me from St. Joe's. Cedric Coward, 6'5", wing from Washington State, Eastern Washington the year before. As you can kind of hear, I don't think all of these are wings. I think Murray-Boyles is somewhere between a wing and a big, really probably more of a 4 than anything, a 4 or 5. I think Carter Bryant's a 3-4, pretty firmly fits on the wing. I think Essengay is more of a big in the Pascal Siakam, style range, right?
Yeah.
Nick Clifford, 6'5" to 6'6", definitely a wing. I think Rasheer Fleming is more of a big personally in terms of the way that he thinks the game, in terms of the fact that he can't really dribble, just more of a big to me. And then Coward is like a true wing. How do I think teams rank them? I think teams are just all over the map on it. I think Carter Bryant's probably the one where you would find the most consensus around him being like a very high end player. A guy that's like definitely a top 12 guy in the class. Murray Boyles, you will find teams that love him, like truly love him. You will find teams that just aren't super interested in him. And again, though, part of the reason that teams like him is they like the idea of using him at times as like almost a 5, as opposed to, him being more of a wing. I would say like between Essengay and Coward next, like I think Coward probably has a bit more of a consensus feel for him right now, where teams like him and just can feel like they know what he is as a, guy that is big, long, can shoot wing and has some real potential defensively. Essengay is going to be more of a fit situation. And I think he's further away than people think from being productive in the NBA. Like I see people say that he's a good defender and I don't understand it. If you watch full games, like he's a pretty bad defender, honestly, right now. Doesn't really have great instincts off the ball. Really can struggle against guards to get leveraged on the ball, where like guys will just blow by him. Like I can pull clips where like I've seen like quite a few guards just like completely blow by him this year. Then I would say Clifford and Rasheer are the next two. You get different opinions on Fleming. And then Neek is a guy that I think just goes somewhere in the first round. It could be anywhere from like 13 to 26, somewhere in that ballpark. The order of where the run starts, again, run probably starts, I would guess one of these guys goes right around 10. I think Bryant would probably be my best guess. Maybe Murray Boyles. Murray Boyles ticks a lot of boxes for what Houston looks for in general. But like Carter Bryant also makes sense for them. I can see Essengay in the late lottery. I can see Coward 13 to 20 is my read on his range right now. Basically I think Coward's range is like 13 to where like I would be surprised if he got past the second Oklahoma City pick. Not because like he just is very Oklahoma City in terms of what they look for.
Yeah.
Fleming is just all over the map. Like I've talked to teams that think he's like a two-way player, frankly. And then I've talked to other teams that think he's like a real first round prospect. I think he's probably last of this group in terms of where teams think. And then Neek is again, like somewhere there. Will any of these guys be available at 22? I would predict yes, that at least one of these guys is available at 22.
So for the audio only listeners, the second question was, do you think anybody would be left at 22 hoping for a double wing draft? I mean, I think if that's what you want, the possibility will be there for Atlanta. A lot of those names will be on the board at 13. And then at 22, some of those names will be on the board along with potentially a Liam McNeeley, I know like wing forward, whatever, like Noah Pinda, Will Riley, like you'll have some other guys that are available there. So I think Atlanta will have the option to go double wing with some good options at those two spots.
Yep. Okay. Next from Milos Novakovsky. Who is the best perimeter defender in the late first to mid second round range? Late first is getting into like Noah Penda territory. I would probably say Penda's up there on that list for me. I think Adou Thiero has a real case. I think Thiero is really good on defense. I think Drake Powell has a case, but Drake Powell like can't do anything on offense right now.
That's a good call.
It's a real project on offense, in my opinion, for Powell. If you had to pick one of those guys, I think I would say Penda, then Thiero, then Powell probably would be the three, right?
I like Powell's defense. I thought it was really good, especially down the stretch. So here's my exact notes on Drake Powell, Sam. 3 and D wing. Let me finish. I buy the defense. I am not sure I can buy the offense. And then ... Yeah, like maybe it's there. I really bought into his defense late in the season.
Agree.
Yeah, Thiero's a good call. Again, I know I'm a little lower on Pinda. I'm not saying he like stinks defensively, but I think I might just go Powell if we're talking straight defense.
I think Powell might be the best on-ball defender of the group. I think he might be the worst off-ball defender of the group right now. I really actually kind of liked Thiero the more I watched his defense. Like, I really like that he always bumps cutters and rollers when he's the low man. Like, just make sure he's always in position there, can really cover ground to get back out to shooters because he's so athletic, takes such long strides. Like, he really is like a good scramble defender. Obviously like a real defensive playmaker too, 1.6 steals, 0.7 blocks. But like, I think that all of the other stuff that you move into defense is also quite good with Thiero. Thiero is like right at the edge of the first round for me. Like I have him like in that like 28 to 32 range right now. I really don't like the offense, and I've seen people will pull clips of like the Illinois game against where Arkansas played Illinois and he had like 27. It was like, well, no, he had 27 because they didn't guard him. They guarded him with Tomislav Vesic, and he did a good job of taking advantage of that. But like that's why that happened, guys. Like the context here is really, really important. It's basically like when an NBA team doesn't guard a guy specifically and purposely. So yeah, it's the context is important.
What about like smaller guards? Not necessarily, but like what about guards? So like I'm thinking like between like Jace, Tahad, Philon, Cam Jones, Tyrese Proctor, Shulga, who would
Philon's probably the best defensive guard there for me, especially long term. I would say once he puts on more strength, I think particularly he will be the best defensive guard of that group. I mean, Zion James, like if we're looking purely defensively on the guard, like Zion James is an awesome defender. If you're looking like mid-second round in the backcourt, it's just I do have real offensive questions there too. Zion is probably the best defender right now of that group, I would say.
Yeah.
Okay. Next, let's see. What do we got here? Let's see here. Kind of answered that Fleming question a little bit. I think he would be a reach at like 12 or 14. Okay, this is a good one. From Holly Hardy, would it be worth the Jazz trying to trade up to number 3 from number 5? What would the cost look like? For me, I would not try to move up from 5 to 3. If I could move up from 5 to 2 or 5 to 1, obviously I would do it. I do not think that 5 to 3 is all that valuable in this draft because I have a very similar grade on all of like Tre Johnson, Con Knipple, VJ Edgecombe, Ace Bailey. I think that's probably going to be a tier. Kasparis is like right on the border of that tier for me. Right in that group for me. But I would not move from 5 to 3 and give up like a first round pick. I would stay at 5 and pick if I was them.
I agree with you. Like I never want to say never, depending on what the cost, like Holly asked here, I don't know what that would cost, but I would not either. I think I would just stay at 5 if I'm Utah and let the board fall to me and take what is there. I'm with you.
Yeah. Let's see. What do we got? What do we got next? We've got, let's just answer this. Is Porzingis in the 28th pick for Jalen Duren a deal that makes sense for Detroit?
So my immediate reaction to this is Porzingis is not the type of vet that Trajan Langdon has shown to prioritize in his 12 months as GM of the Detroit Pistons. So far, he has prioritized veterans who play a lot of minutes and who play a lot of games. All of those acquisitions have been in that ilk. It's one off season, it's 1 year, and maybe they're transitioning to a more aggressive approach. But I would be surprised if all of a sudden he decided to go after a player like Porzingis, who has had injury concerns. And, even in these playoffs, we saw it again. I would be surprised if that's something Detroit would do, even though I understand the idea here of a stretch big and all of that. I think that the idea there, I completely get. Like, I understand what the person is going for.
We can just answer this one because we're getting back to the Jazz real quick. Do the Jazz taking Ace or Khan at number 5 if VJ and Trey are gone? I would imagine it would be one of those two. Yes. I would imagine it would be one of those two would be my read.
Yeah.
Maybe Fears. Like, I think Fears is not impossible then. I don't know how they would evaluate Fears within that group. Again, Fears is just not a guy that I'm on the same page with. So it's hard for me in that regard, but yeah. Okay. We'll just answer the one below this. What's up with the Liam McNeeley slide?
I mean, I think for a lot of people, I would guess there's some athleticism concerns. And then for a player, and we've talked about this multiple times, a player who was pegged as a shooter, he shot 32% on 5.5 attempts. We've talked about it though. He shot 87% from the free throw line. I think he's a good shooter. The context and the role he was asked to play in did not do him any services. I still think I still have him mid first round. I'm probably higher than others, so he hasn't slid as much for me. And I would assume, Sam, there's probably some questions around like ability to attack off the bounce and finish at the rim. Like, along with the 3-point percentage, he was 38% from the field overall. So I feel like those are probably some of the questions, and those athleticism movement things go to the defensive end of the floor and what it looks like there, even though I think he competes his ass off and will be a good team defender in terms of communication, rotation, those type of things.
Yeah, so I just looked up the numbers here really quickly. So Liam McNeeley in his first 14 games shot 38% from 3 and 85% from the line. That is the first 14 games are the games he played before the ankle injury.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Bryce.
No, I was just gonna say that's another important point as well is the ankle injury along with the team context.
Yeah, I think that's really like the entire context of Liam McNeeley's season is like before and after the ankle injury. He was at 43% from the field before that. If you look after the ankle injury, the 13 games shot 35, 26, 88. Like, it was just night and day. Like, he was out there trying to play more consistently on the ball.
Yep.
Because they realized they didn't have a point guard and also was dealing with an ankle injury. Like, I think that's the entirety. It should be the entirety of the conversation with Liam McNeeley. I would guess he goes somewhere in the top 24, 23, somewhere like that. I will have him certainly in that range. I think right now I have him right around, 18, 17, something like that. So I feel fine with Liam McNeeley at this point.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a really good mid first round pick. And it's a little bit lower than like early in the year. I had him top 10 and was really, whenever he was really knocking down shots and stuff like that. Some of that is, you start to see some of the other things. Some of that is you see other players and you see their upside and their potential. But yeah, I don't think that the slide that I've seen in some other places is going to be what I feel like it's going to be for him.
Well, and here's the other thing with McNeeley too. I think we have a longer sample, if I remember correctly, of him hitting shots. I'm trying to see what the Montverde numbers were. I think they were quite high, if I remember correctly. I don't have them off the top of my list. I'll figure those out at some point. Okay. Let's Someone asked about a specific trade. This trade is from Alex NZZZ. Corey Kispert, Bilal Coulibaly in number 6 for Harrison Barnes in number 2.
Wait, say that
Any
again.
Thoughts there?
Say that again.
So I'll just pull it up on the screen while we're talking. Corey Kispert, Bilal Coulibaly in number 6 for Harrison Barnes and the number 2 pick.
No.
Yeah, I would just rather have Dylan at the end of the day.
Yep.
Yeah. To me, I understand the idea like pairing Bilal and Wemby again. I think they're quite close, but yeah, to me, that's just
okay.
Dylan.
Yeah. And then you get Bilal on the wing, and we talked about Dylan being like a little bit redundant potentially and all of that. Okay. I understand. I was too dismissive. I apologize. I understand the idea here. I still don't like that value for me. I understand the idea though. I don't like the value though. I will take Dylan Harper still.
Okay. Let's get to some questions here on the feed that you guys have sent off since we've been going. From Sebastian Perez. My question is, if you are the Spurs, which center would you draft with number 14 or with number 38? So like the Spurs obviously do need to come away at some point, either in the offseason or in the draft with a backup center. I probably would not take one at 14. I would almost just rather, if I was them, I would rather move the pick out for like a future pick than just take like Thomas Sorber or something at 14. I like Sorber. Like I'm going to have Sorber like right in that range at the end of the day, but I would just rather for them particularly, given that you have your long-term center of the future, I would just rather, get the future asset. I think at 38, if there are centers on the board that make sense, like if Ryan Kalkbrenner was to fall to 38, run and do it. If Max Raymund was at 38, I think that's really interesting, and I would love to see them do that. I kind of hope he falls to 38 to see them do that. By the way,
he's not, because he's not falling past. I don't have a direct line to Trajan Langdon, but I hope somebody lets him know that if Maxime Raymund was on the board at 37 and the Pistons don't take him, I will disagree with that decision very strongly.
Max Raymund also played with Wemby, by the way, when they were young.
Okay,
with,
nice.
Non-Terrace youth system. So like that's an interesting.
What about the guy we talked about pre-show, Niederhauser? Is that too high?
Niederhauser for them is fine. Yeah. Like it's right around the range, probably 38. It's probably a little bit higher for me, but like it's on the higher end for me. But yeah, like it's at 38 to me. It's not at 14. And, I think we've given a few names here at least where, they could look. Markovich isn't really a center to me. Maybe Janai Broom. I think Janai Broom probably has a good shot to get there. Someone along those lines. There are certainly names that you could look at though.
Yeah.
Okay. From Phoenix Kane. I'm having trouble comparing this draft to others in the past. How many of these players would top the 2024 NBA draft? How do they compare to the top 5 in 2023? I think 2023 is just like a way better draft than this. Like Victor is better than Cooper. All due respect to Cooper, they're literally my top 2 prospects of the last decade. But I would rather have 2024. Or I would rather have 2023 kind of across the board. And then you also with 2023 have all of Scoot, Amen, and Brandon Miller and Cam Whitmore, who all of whom are fantastic. Like, yeah, or Cam Whitmore is maybe something less than that, but like, yeah, I think that my top 6 in that class is like drastically better than the top 6 in 2024. Or 2025.
Yeah, I agree. Because like you said, Victor is still a better prospect than Cooper. Cooper would go number 2 in that. Scoot was a better prospect than Dylan Harper, right? As a prospect?
I think it's pretty close. Yeah.
Okay. But then
I had Scoot as a low end tier 1. I have Dylan like teetering on if I'm going to have him tier 1, tier 2.
Okay. I agree though, because the other thing is like that next group of guys was all real interesting to me. And I spent a lot of time in that group because Detroit fell to 5. So you had Asar, Anthony Black, Koulibaly, Jarris Walker, Hendricks, Kaysen Wallace. Like that was an interesting group of players after that. So yeah, I think definitely 2023. And then, I mean, from last year's class, Cooper and Dylan are definitely 1 and 2 in that
not
class
even a
also.
question.
It's not even close.
Yeah. It's a good question. Like, I think VJ, and I have all of VJ, Con, Ace, Trey. Like those guys are all tier 3. They're in the same tier to me as Ricochet and Sar and those guys. I think you'd be picking and choosing basically between those guys.
Yeah. For me, I really liked Sar. I don't do the tiers the same way as you. Like my tiers are new every year, which is probably stupid because then I can't compare these things as well. I would have Sar number 3 in this draft, but I also I just really liked Alex Sar. So.
Right. Yeah, I think that's probably, and then 2023 to 2025, the real difference is in I had all of Amen Thompson, Brandon Miller, I had Cam Whitmore as a tier 2 guy. I had a number of those guys. I don't really have any of those guys beyond Dylan Harper in this class.
Yeah.
So, okay. Can LeBaron Philon play the 1 in the NBA? I like his defense, but struggle to see it on offense for him outside of transition. Where are you on this? Actually, this is a good question.
Yeah. So let me see. Was playing off the ball. I think he probably has to play on the ball. I like his touch. We always talk about that. I have the nuance of the dribble moves, the hesitations, all of that. I think maybe I would want to see some of the passing and the pick and roll handler and those type of things a little bit more. But I understand the question. I understand it, but that's kind of what I look at him at is still an on-ball guy.
Yeah. I think he's probably going to have to play the point. I do like the way that he moves the ball off of the ball and moves without the ball. I think he's really good at that stuff. I also love the defense, but in terms of the passing, I liked the touch on lobs. I liked the fact that he could throw live dribbles with either hand, at times, but for the most part does gather to make his passes. I think that's where he's going to have to show the stride is really becoming a live dribble passer as opposed to consistently gathering before passing. I like his floater on drives. That's actually probably his most effective way to score right now. Hit those at a 57% success rate, those goofy little push shots he has. Okay. So the thing, I'm starting to waver back the other way a little bit now because I don't have a lot of passing notes. And then the other thing is the dribble, the true dribble jumper stuff wasn't great. Right. And so that's what worries me.
Yeah. And then at the rim in the half court isn't superb. And so now I'm starting to question, I don't know how much he actually scores it on the ball. And if I don't love his passing, maybe he is more of an off the ball player because he does relocate and move. And I think the unguarded catch and shoot numbers were actually right under 40%. So maybe I'm talking myself back the other way now. Yeah. This is why I have him a bit lower than most people do. I have him in the 20s to 30s as opposed to, super high end prospect. Agreed. Okay. Who is the highest upside out of the Colin Murray Boyles, or no, this is Carter Bryant, out of the Carter Bryant, Nick Clifford, Cedric Coward group? Who? I would say I think the highest upside is probably Coward to me, actually. My initial answer was going to be Coward. I think that his ability to shoot from versatile places on the court and in versatile ways is just more expansive than what Carter Bryant's is, even though I also really love Bryant on defense. I love Bryant almost the name I've been using for him is I think he's going to be Marvin Williams in the NBA, and people will hear that and,
feel some type of way about it. But like, if you look at Marvin Williams' NBA career, Marvin Williams started 828 career games. Like that's a pretty good run. If Carter Bryant starts for 10 years in the NBA.
Can I throw a name at you? You tell me how off it is. Because I always use this player when I talk about kind of like prototypical forwards for men. Jeremy Grant is always one whenever I think about this archetype of player. What is
Carter Bryant?
What is the difference between those guys?
I mean, Jeremy can dribble a little bit more than Carter can. Carter's handle worries me a little bit.
I agree with that. So is that the biggest limiter from like, what about athleticism wise, what they would project defensively, like who they would guard? Like, do you think there's similarities there?
Jeremy's more athletic than Carter. Like Jeremy was like really, really explosive. Like, do you remember that run where he was in Oklahoma City where he's like playing center at times? Like, I think that was like maybe right before he got to Detroit, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're just like kind of different to me almost. Like, yeah, they're just like, they're different, I guess, to me. I can't really wrap my head around like the concerns there.
Yeah. And to be clear, I'd say it's Jeremy Grant's always the archetype I use. Like whenever I just think about the role I watched him play in Detroit, like to me, he's like the best idea in terms of being able to be like this forward 4-man or whatever. So then I always try to compare guys to him in terms of what can they do that he does, where are they lacking, etc. So I think I'm with Coward as well. Then it would probably be Carter, then Neek, even though I'm a huge Neek fan.
Yeah, I think that's what I would say as well. And I'm going to have Carter and Coward both. Like Carter, I will have a little bit higher because I really like Carter on defense. Coward, I worry a little bit more about the defense, and you know, the production against good teams is like a little bit concerning with Cedric. But I also am I adore Cedric Coward. I've been talking about him for months now, I feel like, and I had him as a top 35 guy coming into the season. So I don't know. I am a big Cedric Coward guy. Okay. Adou Thiero probably makes an impact in the league. That's a statement. Do you think there's any chance for him to shoot like 34 to 36% from three? I mean, there's a chance, but like, I would be surprised. I think if he hit that level, I would be very surprised if he hit that level, honestly.
Okay. So here's the pitch for it. Career 71% free throw shooter on 260 attempts. I think the synergy floater / hook / whatever shot, however I think he was 21 of 33. So I guess you could say there's some touch there, even though I think his layups in the half court actually weren't great. Yeah, I don't know.
So here's what I've got on his jumper. Thiero was rarely able to take advantage of teams playing off of him as a shooter. Didn't look all that confident when he did. Only took 1 3-pointer per game in 72 games, made them at 28.4%. All of his threes were standstill threes. Most were very open. The actual mechanics don't look all that broken. I understand the idea of why people think this might work at some point. The actual release doesn't look that bad. It is out in front of his face, and it's a very low shooting pocket, which I think kind of gives me concerns against closeouts whenever teams like things start moving fast. Right. Yeah. And things start going at speed. I think the shot seems like arrhythmic between how he transitions his momentum from his lower half to his upper half. And I think it's like kind of robotic at the top as well. Like it's not very fluid in terms of the way it comes out of his hand. More than that, you mentioned the layups. Like he made 47% of his layups this year. Like, yep. I get that he tries to like make these like difficult attempts. Like he'll try and go like under a big's arm with like a finger roll, like inside hand sometimes. But like, he also doesn't have a lot of like dexterity with his left hand either. Like, I just worry that it's all kind of a house of cards that you're betting on with the jumper. Like it's not one issue. Yeah. Like with Yegor, like I think that you can work with a lot of his problems as a shooter by fixing his base, which it seems like is what they're working on right now. Like if you look at his pro day, like the base just looked a lot stronger. And I think you could see that his energy transfer came up a lot smoother and he was able to get the shots as opposed to him shooting like shot puts because his left foot was too far behind his right foot whenever he would shoot. I think with Thiero, there's like just a lot more to kind of fix there. And maybe he will. Like shout out my Pittsburgh guy, baby. We want Adou Thiero to be a great player. I want nothing more than Adou Thiero to make the NBA. Like his family, they're like rock stars. Like the dad is, a coach like in the area. I think the mom, if I remember correctly, like may have been drafted in the WNBA. His sister is like this incredible, younger player who I think is going into her senior year, if I remember correctly. Like, I would love like a Pittsburgh basketball dynasty. Like, please give me the Pittsburgh basketball dynasty. I'm just like not quite there on the shooting with Thiero.
Yeah, of course there's a chance. I guess if you ask me to bet, I would probably take the under on those numbers.
I think I would too. From general opinions right now, I mean, you honestly might have better feel for like the general opinions than I do. Who do you see being the biggest risers and fallers come draft day from Callum?
Biggest risers on draft day.
Yeah, I mean, the answer to this like 3 weeks ago was probably Cedric Coward from where the public had him. Honestly, it was probably the answer like a week ago. And then people figured it out. Biggest risers. I could see. Go ahead.
I was gonna say you go because you have an answer. I was going to answer the faller.
I was going to say I can see Berenger going higher than what people think.
Okay.
Like when NBA teams saw him this year, they really liked him. Like really, really liked him a lot. If he went like 12 or something like that, that wouldn't surprise me at all. I'm not saying like he should. I'm not saying, I'm not making a case for it. I'm just saying like if he went that high, it would not blow my mind.
Yeah.
Who was your answer on the faller?
Noah.
You think Essengay? Where is he right now?
I consistently see like Twitter draft big boards where he is consistently top 5. I've seen him.
Oh, but that's not real life though. Like in terms of where, like, there's no way John has him in the top 5, right?
Oh,
like,
so you're talking
like.
I was just talking just the Twitter draft board. I thought that's why you asked me. Like, I try not to look at draft boards because I don't want it to skew mine. So
yeah.
So like rookie, when we looked at rookie scale the other day, that's
the way to do this.
That was the first time I really looked to see where like consensus stuff. Like they have Noah at 12.
I think he could go that high. That wouldn't blow my mind. So they have Jace at 15. Jace is probably my answer there. I
was going to say Essengay in terms of people who think he's top 7 or 8. And then my other answer was going to be Jace. Another, I think, sneaky answer. We've outlined this process multiple times is potentially Fears, depending on like
just the order.
Order of
like
things.
The teams like Fears enough to where I think he'll go. I think someone would move up for Fears would be my read.
Yeah. Like
if he started falling into like the 13 range or so, I think somebody would probably try and go up and get him is what my read is.
Is there a chance? So Danny Wolf is 20 on this. Is there a chance like somebody falls in love with that archetype in the like 10 to 12 range?
I'd say his range is, 13 to 23. So like it's within range to me. Jace at 15, like I actually wonder if that's within range, to be honest with you. Right now. Like I'm not sure that I would range his draft status that way.
Got you.
Let's see.
Okay, so
go ahead.
I was going to ask you to tell me, like, guys, the person with the most likely chance to be a first round pick that's outside of this consensus top 30.
Okay.
Nope, we're going to do 35.
Yeah, because Coward is at 30 right now.
Philon, Thiero's 30, and Kalkbrenner's at 32. Okay, so do you have it on the screen? I'll say something.
I'm looking at it.
For the listeners, as you think, Broom, Cam Jones, Pettiford, Markovich, Alex Tui, Chaz Lanier, Proctor, Condon, Miles Bird.
Look, if Pettiford is in the draft, I think he's going in the first round. Like, I think that's the only way that he would stay in. So, like, sure. That's probably the answer. I might pick Proctor here. Like, somebody just like really likes the shooting and defense, and he does well in workouts, maybe, but. Like, I think there is like a pretty big drop off once you hit a certain point in this class. I think that it is like probably right around that 35 mark though.
Condon is another one that I don't know about. Well, ESPN, I think, has him high but Condon is another one where I consistently see in the late first round for big boards and mocks and stuff that just show up on my feed. So
I think probably more likely to go back if you made me guess right now.
Yeah. I mean, to be clear, I do not have him in that range, but
yeah, I don't either for what it's worth. Okay. Where's Tre Johnson on your board? And do you think his weaknesses can significantly affect his overall outcome? I'll answer where I have him on my board first. I'm going to have him somewhere 3 to 6. I would guess realistically, probably 3 to 5. Right now I have him at 3. I go back and forth. It's either gonna. My guess is it's either 3 or 4. Honestly, is where I have him. It'll go back and forth between him and Con.
Yeah, I have him at 5 right now in this same tier of players that we've talked about the entire time. Do you think his weaknesses can significantly affect his overall outcome? High level role player to 9th, 10th in a rotation. Listen. I think if Tre Johnson accepts this role as an off-ball shot maker, we talked about like why I think we both liked the thought of him in Utah in terms of like how they would use him and stuff. I think he could be really, really effective. I think if Tre Johnson ends up in a situation or wants to be a primary on-ball, create his own shot, I think that could be a real struggle because I don't believe in that aspect of his game enough. As much. And so like that would, to me, that's the weakness is role recognition and his acceptance. If he accepts it, I think he ends up being a really high level option for whoever drafts him. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that he will at least be like a 6th or 7th man.
Sure.
I don't think he like falls to like 9th or 10th in a rotation. The shooting is too good. And he's too hard of a worker, frankly, is the piece of this. Like, I'd be pretty staggered if he fell to like a 9th or 10th man situation. He's just too like serious of an individual. Like, he cares too much about this. And the shooting is just too high level off of movement already. Like, I think that he would be, I don't think he'll fall that low at the end of the day. I do think there are outcomes where he is like a, 4th or 6th man in terms of, being a overall option, like a Malik Beasley type player, sure. A bigger Malik Beasley basically. But I do really think that, I think there is like a real ceiling too as a scorer. If we start to see him like really get to a point where he can, score at the rim and do some things, I'm a little bit skeptical of all that stuff coming together, but I like Tre Johnson enough to where I don't think that he'll fall to like 9th or 10th man status.
I agree.
Okay. Where is Hudson Yang on your draft boards?
I just had somebody ask me about this earlier. I have him in the 2nd round. I think he's really interesting as like a passer, as a big, and the things he does in regards to that. I was big. I think I took him in the 1st round in our like preseason mock draft. I think it was what NBA team did they scrimmage? Or or in the preseason, but whoever it was, I was a little bit nervous.
Well, it was summer league. Like they played some summer league teams
summer league.
Summer.
I think I got the movement just makes me really nervous, Sam.
Yeah. I also think he is somebody that's like a very, very high waist. And that worries me in terms of him being able to like get to any sort of spot on the court regularly against strength. I have him as like a clear, like second round. Let's take a flyer on this and see if it works guy. I'm still kind of working through the draft guide on a few second rounders, but I would guess that Yang will be in the 40s somewhere for me, 40s to like early 50s.
Yep. That's what I haven't I've said this multiple times, so I'm sorry for being repetitive, but I haven't fully hashed out like my second round and all of that until I just see, I feel good about guys being in that tier, and then I'll hash out the official rankings. I'll go back and rewatch some stuff once we see who's staying in and who's not.
Yeah. So Yang, just like not much of a shooter right now, 37% on mid-range jumpers, 26 on catch and shoot threes. Everything's very slow in terms of his process too. Like he's a pretty like solid screener by and large, but like if he catches out high, he is like holding and stopping and like, you know, kind of trying to do things kind of himself a little bit. Like there's nothing quick about the process. Really doesn't move well away from the rim. Like that's going to be a significant problem for him. I didn't like the pick and roll defense either. I thought he got caught in no man's land all the time. Just like between the ball handler and the big, I thought he was quite hoppy and like tries to like use that to overcompensate for his lack of foot speed. Didn't really use his angles well, I didn't think, in terms of his length, just because of how slow footed he was. And then the lack of strength was a real issue for me. I like the idea of the passing.
Yeah.
And I like that he's like a long strider for like, you know, DHO denials. And, you know, if he can reject and like get to the rim, like that's some really like fun stuff to me. And he does have like real touch around the basket. Although I will note like people that are going to use the numbers, like 69% of his layups, 75% from the rim. The CBA is like an absolutely abysmal defensive league. Just like be aware of that when you start like looking into these numbers.
Yep.
Okay. We've talked a bit about Max Raymund. Like you're a little bit higher. I think I have Max right now. Where do I have Max? 33 right now. So like I'm like right at the borderline of the first round, which I was a little bit surprised that I ended up there, but that's from Brian. Like I assume you have him in that ballpark.
Yeah, we're same range, same tier. Nothing crazy.
Who's the best center in this draft in terms of stretching the floor on offense and protecting the rim on defense?
Is there anybody that does both?
Kalkbrenner does both. I think the answer is probably Maluach is like the highest upside that could theoretically make it work, but I don't really buy the shot, and I don't think you do either in the way to where like he would ever get guarded out there, right?
I wanted to buy the shot so bad. Like you won't find somebody who wanted this to be this, and like I wanted it so much.
Yeah. The answer to me is probably Kalkbrenner. And I think we're all underestimating the level to which there is a real shot that Kalkbrenner goes in the first round, by the way.
Yeah. I'm a little lower on him, but I love him in the second round is what I'll say.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I will probably have Kalkbrenner like, I don't know where it'll be, like 28 to 32 or something. But yeah, I like Ryan enough to where I think it's just a really valuable skill set. Like I actually do think he can shoot, and he's like a real rim protector. Someone asked, is there a chance for him to become Brook Lopez? Not quite that, because he's not that strong. Like he does, again, high hips, like higher center of gravity. That is an issue, but I think that like he can become like a backup version of Brook Lopez, at least. Like the name we've been using the whole year is Luke Cornett, and Luke Cornett's been freaking amazing this year.
Sure. Yeah, I have him solid backup big, and then the upside is the jumper. So 100%. And I will admit, it looks like it has potential. There are numbers that are slightly interesting. Free throw percentage just interesting. Like I understand it. So I'm cool. I understand. I understand it. That's where I'll say.
Someone asked, what's the word on Rocco Zikarsky? Is he rising? Looked okay at the combine. I mean, he didn't do anything at the combine. Like, didn't play 5-on-5. Like, I guess he shot it, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, he'll go somewhere in the second round is the answer.
Yeah.
I don't know where. He'll go somewhere in the second round, though, is my read.
A lot of bigs we're talking about here in the second round.
A lot of bigs in the second round. I think that's right. Like, that's where we're kind of setting up. And then this might be the last question here. What's the scoop on Yanic Niederhauser? Looks good and the measurements are crazy. Yeah, like if you watch the Niederhauser tape, it's like a little bit less impressive athletically than what the athleticism says. I think you agree with that, Bryce.
I will read my quick notes on both of these points. And I want to be clear, I came away liking his game. Ridiculous combine measurements and the testing does not use length as much as he could. So like defensively at the rim is really good, but in other situations, his hands are often down. He's not like super active with them and all of that. And I just, like, I didn't think on film he moved as well. Like there were flashes, like he had this sick, like posted up out of a ball screen, caught, spun baseline, reverse dunk. And I was like, okay, that was really good. But I don't think the athleticism popped as much as what I expected after the combine numbers.
Yeah, like he's in the John Tonje, Micah Peavy, Elijah Martin zone for me more than like a real, like, I don't think he's a first round pick at all. I think he's okay, let's get this guy into our system, see if maybe we can like access the athleticism a little bit more. But like part of this is that he is like 250, like he's a big dude. And like he plays a little bit heavier in, traffic, I feel like. Yeah.
No,
like
I'm with.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, like, I'm with you there. Like, it just didn't, it didn't move as fluidly as I thought. Like I said, I think some of the stuff, the ball screen stuff, post position, catch and finish. I brought up with you with some of the bobble catches that make me nervous. Yeah. Rebounding, just catching the ball. Like he missed some finish opportunities because of that. And then defensively, I loved what he did at the rim. I think in the game I watched, he like had 4 or 5 blocks, but he gave up a ton of points on true post ups and stretch threes. I just didn't think his awareness was always super, super great.
Yeah. Here's the last question that I want to finish on, actually. And this is a Twitter question. Does the trend of college athletes staying longer due to NIL money ultimately benefit NBA front offices by providing more data for draft decisions, or does it diminish opportunities to find undervalued talent later in the draft? From RDR 828. I love this question so much.
Yeah, this
is a conversation that I'm having all the time with NBA people right now, by the way.
I mean, so I do think it gives them more data. And so in that way, I think in general, more data should mean better decisions. What I'm struggling with now is, does it completely diminish the opportunity to find undervalued talent? I'm trying to decide on that. I mean, I guess the thing is, like, Austin Reeves played how many years of college basketball and still was going to be a second round pick that ended up as an undrafted free agent, right? So you can still find these guys even if they are 3-4 year players.
I think that it does ultimately help more than anything else, because I think that people overvalue and over-index on the idea of getting later steals and how valuable those things are. Because I think people like to be first to like find something, right? I think people like to, feel like they got one over on somebody, right? Got one over on, the mainstream consensus. Like your opinion was right and other people's was wrong, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, like we went through in the 2023 draft, right? So few of these guys end up being relevant. You know what I mean? Like they just do. You go back through 2022, Nembhard goes 31st overall. Jalen Williams goes 34th to Oklahoma City, the Arkansas big, not J-Dub. Max Christie goes 35. Beyond 35, I mean, Jaden Hardy has gotten another deal. I have no idea if he's going to be a real valuable NBA player. Ryan Rollins was like somewhat useful for Milwaukee, but he's like second stop already. So like, I would argue that Golden State did not really experience much value from Ryan Rollins. Vince Williams, has turned into something solid at 47, which is fine. Guy Santos for the Warriors at 55, like ninth man, can sort of play some minutes here and there. There's just not like a lot of value, right? Like it's not like these guys are really coming in and, changing outside of the top 35. Like they're not really changing the paradigm. Like you might get one per year, like a Tamani Kamara that does it outside of the top 35. So 2021, Deuce McBride goes 36, like might as well include him there. Ayo Dosunmu goes 38, which was like a little bit of a surprise, but that's probably a win getting him. It's definitely a win getting him at 38, but like it's low enough to where it's worth discussing. Jared Butler goes 40. I think Jared Butler is going to play in the NBA for a while, but like, again, multiple stops took him some time. Delano Banton at 46 by Toronto was not very valuable for Toronto, right? We're now in Portland. Somewhat valuable player, like useful player. Then you go through, like BJ Boston, Luka Garza, Charles Bassey, Sandro. You get to Aaron Wiggins, like Aaron Wiggins at 55 is the win probably of like the 2021 draft. There's just, it's so rare. And then 2020, right? You go through that draft. Tre Jones at 41 was like a good like innings eater, backup point guard. Nick Richards, I guess they got 3 extra second round picks for him, so that's useful. After that, not really anybody else. Isaiah Joe, but again, that's second stop. 76ers gave up on him early. A lot of these guys you have to give up on early at the end of the day because you can't keep holding the roster spot. Yeah. Sam Merrill at 60, the Pelicans or Milwaukee like couldn't hang on to him forever. And then he goes to Sacramento and then he goes to Cleveland, right? So a lot of these guys that go in the second, they're just such long prospects. So like, have to play out the string on. They're just like not ready for it at the end of the day. So even when you do hit on one, the odds are you might be hitting on somebody that you're waiting on. And the next team, the second team gets the benefit.
Well, and that's what, like, I'm trying to look at like some of just the last 2 drafts and who knows what these guys' careers end up with, but like NBA teams got 4 years to evaluate Tamani Kamara and he still ended up at 55. Right. So like, I guess to answer the second part of the question, Tamani still slipped and was a 4-year guy for teams to evaluate. Jalen Wells is a little bit different, right? Because the Sonoma State to Washington State. Sure. But, AJ Mitchell, I'm just looking at guys in this last class that went in the second round that we think are going to be real NBA players, 3 years at Santa Barbara. Jamal Shed, who played almost 1,500 minutes for Toronto this year, excuse me. And 4-year player at Houston. I think those guys are still going to be there. Like, I think undervalued players will still be there to be found, even if they are 3-4 year guys. We've seen it consistently happen. And I want to touch real quick on something you said. I've been finding the right time to bring this up. To the everybody wants to be right, everybody wants to be the first. This is my personal experience. So this is for anybody out there who's trying to do it a different way. Guys, I'm not on Game Theory Podcast because I got anything right. Sam Vecenie didn't call me up and say, you know what, Bryce? You want to come be my co-host because you thought Paolo Banchero was the number 1 pick in whatever draft? Like, we never had those conversations. I don't want to speak for Sam, but it's because the first time we talked, I listened. We built a relationship, and I think he could probably tell I worked really, really hard and was really passionate. I've also got opportunities outside of the media realm, and none of those came from quote unquote being right on a player either. They came from genuine relationships and showing people that I work really, really hard at what I do. And because everybody's going to miss no matter what. So if you're out there like, oh, I got to prove that I'm right, I don't think you do. And if you're one of those that's like not into that, you'll be fine. Like you'll find your path without having to be right or be first.
Yeah. I mean, look, like I guess tweeted obliquely about this yesterday. You know, I don't want to take shots at anybody.
Yeah.
I'm just happy that like the draft community in general is like very, strongly thriving, and, that people give opinions, and that like people really, try and do some work and like think about it. Cause like, look, like that's kind of what I did. That's what you did, right? Like, we started as these like kind of randoms that were just doing things. So like, I'm all for people doing that. The thing I will say is like, there's a lot of certainty in the draft space, where people feel like, this guy's definitely going to return top 5 value. This guy's going to do this. This guy's going to do this. Like, guys, maybe this is just me, figuring this out because I'm older now, I guess. Like, I turned 35 last month. Like,
so old, Sam.
I know, right? But I've been doing this for 10 years now, professionally, right? And I think I'm pretty good at this. Like most NBA people I talk to think I'm pretty good at this, right? I don't think I'm great at this by any, like, I think I'm never going to get anything right. Like, or like never going to get everything right is my point. It's just never going to happen. I can feel some type of way about like, I'm going to have Ace Bailey probably at like 6 or so on my board this year, but I'm going to have him the same tier as the guy I have number 3, right? Like maybe Ace Bailey turns into, the Paul George that he sees in the world, right? Or maybe he's going to turn into Cam Reddish. Like, I don't know. But the thing that is important here is we're all evaluating freaking teenagers who are all going to like become totally different human beings by the time that they're 24. You know what I mean? Like even just like from their brain is going to develop more perspective. Right. And like, I'm mad that I brought up Ace, like when considering this, cause like, there's going to be a lot of discussion about Ace, but like, it goes the same with any prospect. These guys, like, they're all just going to mature and develop and become like, different people. Like I was talking to, a trainer about a former, let's call him lottery pick. I'm trying to keep it a little bit vague. Who thought he was like amazing when he got to the NBA and like had some success here and there, but like it, was hit or miss and is on like the borderline of, or, was on the borderline of the NBA when I had this conversation a while ago. Right. And the thing that he recognized going from, entering the NBA when he was 19, 20 years old to now, which is like a few years into his career, is like, man, like I had no idea how to work. Right. Like I had no idea like what it took. Right. People are going to like figure that out when they're 25 at the end of the day. They're going to learn what it takes. You're going to become more professional. You're going to become more intelligent about the way that you attack things. Most people will, at least, maybe not everybody, but most people will. With NBA teams, you're trying to like, in like with draft evaluations for me, and maybe people think about this differently, and I understand that if they do, but like you're thinking about it like in terms of like what the value is that you're going to bring to the team that drafts you.
Yep.
Right. How quickly can you bring that value? How fast can you actually achieve your potential? And what is your upside to where, what is the intersection of the upside versus how long teams are actually going to be willing to put up with you not being very good yet by NBA standards, frankly, because most rookies, most teenagers hitting the NBA are not very good when they hit the NBA, right? any other profession, you can feel that way too, right? And this goes for any other profession as well. Like as a teenager, I had no idea how to work probably. Comparatively to now when like I have a system for like how I go about things, right? And my brain is more developed in how I think about things. So I say this to say that like there's never any certainty in this process. Like I don't think it's a crapshoot. Like I will hear people say that too. I do not think it's a crapshoot. I think that there are real things that you can work toward to try to figure out in order to make better informed bets on the right kind of people and the right kind of players. But by and large, you are still making bets. And the key is having the right processes in place to make the right kinds of bets, in my opinion. Like if I have Ace Bailey at number 6 in this draft, and he goes 5th, 4th, 5th, 6th overall or whatever, and ends up being like the next Cam Reddish or whatever, right? I'm not going to think that that was a bad ranking, because at the end of the day, you're making an informed bet on a player's upside versus his downside, and you're trying to take a guess on what that player can be, right? Yeah. It's really a bet more than anything. So I'm not going to think less of that if it's wrong. Like I'm not going to, like if Common Maluach becomes a superstar and I had him at 12, like, you know, I'll look at that and go, okay, like what did I miss here? Mm-hmm. Well, like Maluach is like an amazing kid, first and foremost. Like literally everybody says that, like everybody I've talked to about him, and I've talked to many people about him at this point, like that'll probably be where it comes from, the insatiable work ethic, right? Like that's probably like many years ago. I think the first year I did this was Rudy Gobert's year. And like, that's what I missed in Rudy. And I'll say that all the time. Like I miss Rudy Gobert's like crazy work ethic more than anything. So the key in terms of figuring out what your evaluation process is just your process in figuring out the information that you need to make informed, rational bets really on these players. And if they're good or if they're, you know, whether or not they turn out right or wrong, it's the same with like the poker table, right? Like if I get my money in at 80%, I'm still going to bust 20% of the time. Mm-hmm. Right. Like if I get in with, you know, literally, I think that's like what the numbers are for aces against ace king, right? I think it's like right around like 82-18 or so, right? Like if you get your money in with aces versus ace king, depending on the suits, it's going to be somewhere between, I think like 81 to 84% of the time you're going to win. And you know what? Like you're still going to lose 17% of the time. So you're still going to get them wrong at the end of the day. So I look at it that way in terms of just like, make sure the process is right. That's ultimately the key. If your process is right and the way you're evaluating things is right, and you're thinking about it that way, that's what's ultimately important. And again, that's what I ultimately saw in Bryce. Like I knew the process was right when in how he was thinking about things. And you know, obviously why I brought him in.
Yeah, that's just, felt like this was an opportunity to go ahead and throw that out. So, and I know hopefully people appreciate us spending some time on it, because I know we do get a lot of, what advice would you give to somebody trying to, you know, probably be more Sam Vecenie than me, because obviously you do this full time. I still teach middle school science, but it is like, I think people wonder a lot of times, and I understand why people want to go I guarantee this player is going to be that, because that gets likes and retweets and quote tweets and stuff like that. And it's just like, it can happen without that is my thing. And like you said, especially if you can show your process, which involves your work ethic and your personality and your relationship building, you have just as good a chance as the person that said, oh, Jalen Wells was going to be all rookie. You know, I don't know if there's somebody out there. If you did, good for you. Like, congrats. But it's not always about being right. I'm a process person. I love that you brought that up. Have the right process.